She was just 19 years old. 19. Oh, God. Those words, spoken by a grieving mother, echo the shock and heartbreak of a tragedy that has left an entire community searching for answers. Our hearts go out to the family of Jimoy Suckoo, a young woman whose life was tragically cut short under circumstances so mysterious they feel almost impossible to comprehend. This is the heartbreaking story of Jimoy Suckoo, a vibrant 19-year-old bartender from Paradise, Westmoreland, Jamaica. She was full of life, independence, and dreams for her future. But on January 12th, her life ended in a hotel room alongside her policeman boyfriend in a case that grows more perplexing with every detail uncovered. Was it an accident? Something far darker? Here's the thing. This isn't just another headline. This is the only place where you'll hear the raw, unfiltered details of what really happened that night. No sensationalized news reports, no half-truths, just the facts, pieced together carefully to honor Jimoy's memory and seek the truth she deserves. The tension is palpable. The questions are endless, and the answers, they're buried deep beneath conflicting stories, unanswered phone calls, and a gun that somehow discharged not once, twice. Stick around because I'll be in the comments later to hear your thoughts and theories about what really happened that night. Welcome to Fatal Fame, where all our stories are based on true crimes. Please support us by subscribing to this channel and clicking the notification bell icon so you don't miss any of our latest stories. I hope you'll feel compelled to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be there later to respond because stories like this, they demand discussion. You might want to grab your coffee, or maybe something stronger, because this is one of those cases that'll leave you questioning everything. Trust me, you're going to want to be fully alert for what's coming next. This tragic incident occurred on January 12th at approximately 7 p.m. in Mapen, Clarendon, Jamaica, a region that unfortunately carries a heavy reputation. It's an area known for its high homicide rate and violent crimes, where headlines about shootings and investigations are far too common. But let me tell you something. When you hear about these cases on the news, they often feel distant, almost abstract. Names become statistics. Faces blur into the background. Not this time. Not with Jimoy Suckoo. Jimoy Suckoo, also known as Jan or Nay, wasn't just another name in the paper. She was a real person. A vibrant, independent young woman who had dreams bigger than the small town she came from. At just 19 years old, she made the bold decision to leave her mother's home and strike out on her own. That takes courage, doesn't it? To step away from the safety net of family and say, "I've got this." Friends and family describe her as sweet, hard-working, and full of life. She didn't rely on anyone else for her finances. She worked as a bartender, earning her way and building a future she could be proud of. And she was proud. People close to her talk about how she carried herself with confidence. One friend said, "She was my person." Think about that for a second. How many people can you truly call your person? The kind of friend who lights up a room just by walking in, who makes everyone around them feel seen and valued. That was Jimoy. Another friend added, "She always lit up the room with her smile." You know those people who just radiate energy, who make you feel better just by being near them? That was her. But here's what really stands out about Jimoy. She wasn't just living day to day. She was intentional about her life. Her mom shared how Jimoy would repeat affirmations to herself, saying things like, "I'm beautiful, I'm worthy, I'm enough." Can you picture that? A 19-year-old girl standing in front of the mirror, reminding herself of her value. She wasn't waiting for someone else to validate her. She was putting herself first. And honestly, isn't that something we could all learn from? Her independence didn't mean she didn't love deeply, though. She adored her brothers and sisters, even if life kept them apart sometimes. In one of her messages, she wrote, "I love my brother. We don't see much of each other these days, but know I love you to the moon and back." That line alone tells you everything you need to know about her heart. She loved fiercely, unapologetically, and without reservation. So now, imagine this bright, determined young woman walking through her life, working, laughing, dreaming, and then suddenly it all stops. Just like that. On January 12th, in a hotel room in Mapen, Clarendon, Jimoy's life ended in a way that no one saw coming. No one except, maybe, the person who was with her that night. Before we get into the details of what happened, take a moment to sit with that. 19 years old, gone. Not just gone, but gone under circumstances so murky, so tangled in conflicting stories, that it leaves you questioning everything. How does something like this happen? Who do we believe? Now, let's talk about what happened on that fateful day, January 12th. To understand the gravity of this case, we need to piece together the moments leading up to Jimoy's death. And trust me, every detail matters here, because nothing about this story adds up neatly. Earlier that day, friends noticed something unusual. Jimoy was on the phone, and it wasn't a pleasant conversation. She was arguing with her boyfriend, Constable Tavoy Hussey. Now, arguments happen in relationships. We all know that, but no one around her knew why they were fighting. At the time, it probably seemed like just another disagreement. But looking back, it feels significant. It's one of those moments where you wonder, was this a sign, a warning, or just life unfolding as it often does, unpredictably and without mercy? Fast forward to later that evening. Jimoy and Tavoy were together in a hotel room in Mapen, Clarendon. What exactly they were doing there isn't entirely clear, but what is undeniable is what happened next. Gunfire shattered the quiet night. Neighbors or passers-by heard the shots and immediately called the police. When officers arrived at the scene, they found Jimoy lying there, bleeding, with a gunshot wound to her chest. She was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, she didn't make it. Jimoy Suckoo, just 19 years old, was pronounced dead upon arrival. Her life ended not in some distant, abstract way, but violently, abruptly, and far too soon. And then came the explanations, or rather, the lack of them. Initially, Tavoy claimed that Jimoy had been playing with his gun while he turned his back for a moment. He said the gun accidentally discharged, hitting her in the chest. That was his story. Clean, simple, tragic accident, except that's not what the evidence showed. When Jimoy's body was examined during the autopsy, the findings painted an entirely different picture. She hadn't been shot once, she'd been shot twice. Once in the mouth and once in the breast. Think about that for a second. 2 shots. Not one. How does someone accidentally fire 2 bullets into another person? The inconsistencies between Tavoy's account and the physical evidence raised more questions than answers. This new information blew the case wide open. People began to speculate. Did Tavoy kill her intentionally? Was it an act of violence fueled by anger or jealousy? Or did the gun somehow go off twice, accidentally, as he claimed? Let's pause here for a moment. If you're sitting there thinking, wait, how does any of this make sense? You're not alone. Even investigators struggle to reconcile these conflicting accounts. First, Tavoy says the gun went off accidentally while it was on the bed. Then, when confronted with the fact that Jimoy was shot twice, he changes his story again. This time, he claims the gun slipped out of his hand while he was removing it from its holster, causing it to discharge. But here's the thing. Neither version fully explains the injuries Jimoy sustained. Being shot in the mouth and the breast doesn't align with either of his stories. It's almost as if the truth is hiding somewhere in the gaps between what he's saying and what actually happened. And it gets even stranger. Jimoy's family has their own set of questions. For instance, why was only one of her phones recovered after her death? Where's the other one? And why did her second phone mysteriously go online after she died? These unanswered questions linger over the case like storm clouds, casting doubt on everything we think we know. So now I want to hear from you. Does Tavoy's explanation sound plausible to you? Could this really have been an accident, or do you think something darker is at play here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be responding later, and I'd love to hear what you think so far. As the investigation unfolded, the cracks in Tavoy's story began to widen, exposing inconsistencies that couldn't be ignored. The autopsy results were perhaps the most damning piece of evidence. They revealed not one, but 2 gunshot wounds, one in Jimoy's mouth and another in her breast. This directly contradicted Tavoy's initial claim that the gun had accidentally discharged while it was lying on the bed. If his account was true, how could there have been 2 shots? And why did the injuries suggest such deliberate targeting? These questions gnawed at investigators, family members, and anyone who dared to dig deeper into the case. But the discrepancies didn't stop there. As more details emerged, red flags popped up everywhere you looked. For instance, why was only one of Jimoy's phones recovered after her death? She was known to carry 2 iPhones, devices she likely relied on for both personal and work-related communication. Yet, only one phone was found at the scene. Stranger still, her second phone somehow went online after her death. How does that happen? Was someone using it? Or was it simply an automated function triggered by a notification or app update? Either way, it added another layer of mystery to an already baffling case. Then there's the matter of Tavoy's shifting narrative. His first explanation, that the gun accidentally went off while it was on the bed, was hard enough to swallow, but when confronted with the autopsy findings, he changed his story entirely. Now, he claimed the gun slipped out of his hand as he was removing it from its holster, causing it to discharge accidentally. Again, this version doesn't align with the nature of Jimoy's injuries. Being shot in the mouth and the breast suggests intent, or at least recklessness, far beyond what an accidental discharge would imply. It's almost as if every time investigators uncovered new evidence, Tavoy scrambled to adjust his story to fit it, leaving behind a trail of contradictions. The case quickly escalated beyond just a local police inquiry. Multiple agencies stepped in to ensure transparency and accountability. First, there's INDECOM, the Independent Commission of Investigations, a body specifically tasked with probing incidents involving law enforcement officers in Jamaica. Their involvement signaled the seriousness of the situation. Alongside them, the Mayan Criminal Investigation Branch launched their own probe, diving deep into the forensic evidence and witness testimonies. Finally, the Jamaica Constabulary Force's internal investigative arm joined the effort, ensuring that no stone was left unturned in determining what really happened that night. Despite these efforts, answers remain elusive. Investigators are working tirelessly to piece together the timeline of events leading up to Jimoy's death. They're analyzing ballistics reports, reviewing surveillance footage, if any exists, and interviewing everyone connected to the case, from friends and family to hotel staff and neighbors. Every detail matters because each unanswered question fuels speculation and doubt. And let's talk about Jimoy's mother for a moment. Jimoy Suckoo has been vocal about her suspicions, refusing to accept the accidental discharge narrative. She points out that when she identified her daughter's body, she saw clear signs of trauma inconsistent with a single accidental shot. "They told me one shot," she said, her voice heavy with disbelief. "But when I saw her, she had been shot twice, in her face and her breast. To her, this isn't just negligence, it feels like a cover-up." Her anguish is palpable, and her calls for justice resonate deeply with those following the case. So now, I want to turn it over to you. What do you think about all this? Do you believe Tavoy's explanations hold water? Or do you think something more sinister occurred that night? Is it possible for a gun to discharge twice accidentally under these circumstances? And what about the missing phone? Does it point to foul play, or is it just a strange coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be responding later, and I'd love to hear your take on this. We're still just scratching the surface here. Next, we'll dive into the emotional toll this tragedy has taken on Jimoy's family and the broader community. Stay with me, we've got so much more ground to cover. The emotional toll of Jimoy Suckoo's death weighs heavily on her family, and their grief is palpable in every word they speak. Her mother, Jimoy Suckoo, has been vocal about her pain and frustration, refusing to accept the narrative that her daughter's death was an accident. In a voice trembling with emotion, she said, "My daughter was murdered, cold, bloody, murdered." Those words, raw and unfiltered, cut through the noise surrounding this case. She isn't just seeking closure, she's demanding justice. "I need answers," she continued. "I need to know everything. Every unanswered question. It's eating me alive." Nine's anguish doesn't stop there. She's calling on everyone, from the Director of Public Prosecutions, DIP, to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, GCHEF, even the Prime Minister, to ensure her daughter's case isn't swept under the rug. "I'm calling on the entire Jamaica," she pleaded. "Every single body. My daughter didn't deserve this. She was only 19. It's hard not to feel the weight of her words. 19 years old. A life full of potential, snuffed out in an instant. And for her mother, the lack of transparency feels like salt being rubbed into an open wound." Jimoy's sister, Rashan Blake, echoes her mother's sentiments, though her tone carries a different kind of anger. An anger born of disbelief. When asked if she thought this could have been an accident, she shot back, "No, I don't think it's an accident." "Why would you think that? Sister got 2 shots. 2 shots. How does that happen by accident?" Her questions linger in the air, unanswered but impossible to ignore. For Rashan, this isn't just about finding out what happened. It's about understanding why her sister, someone she loved deeply, was taken from her so suddenly and violently. What makes this tragedy even harder to process is how little the family knew about Jimoy's relationship with Constable Tavoy Hussey. According to Rashan, Jimoy had introduced him as just a friend during one of their rare video calls. They'd only met 4 months prior, and no one in the family suspected that their bond had grown into something more serious. In fact, Nain revealed that she'd only spoken to Tavoy twice, both times over video call, and had no idea he was Jimoy's boyfriend. "She didn't tell us she was going to Clarendon to visit him," Nain explained. "We didn't even know they were that close." This lack of information has left the family feeling blindsided, adding another layer of confusion to an already devastating situation. They're left piecing together fragments of Jimoy's life, trying to reconcile the vibrant young woman they knew with the tragic circumstances of her death. As news of Jimoy's passing spread beyond her immediate circle, public sentiment began to shift. At first, people accepted the initial report. A young woman accidentally shot herself while playing with her boyfriend's gun. But as inconsistencies emerged, the 2 gunshot wounds, the missing phone, the conflicting accounts from Tavoy, the story took on a darker tone. Social media lit up with speculation. Was this really an accident? Or was it something far more sinister? Some pointed fingers at Tavoy, questioning how a trained police officer could allow his firearm to discharge not once, but twice, in such a reckless manner. Others wondered if Jimoy's death was intentional, fueled by jealousy or rage. And then there were those who believed the truth lay somewhere in between, a tragic mishap spun out of control by poor judgment and negligence. For Jimoy's family, however, these debates are secondary to their primary goal: uncovering the truth. Every unanswered question feels like another blow to their already shattered hearts. Nain described the moment she identified her daughter's body, recalling how she collapsed in shock when she saw Jimoy lying there, lifeless. "She was shot in her face," Nain recounted, her voice breaking. Above her lip, near her nose. And then there was another shot to her breast. They told me one shot, but when I saw her, it was clear they lied. That realization, that the story she'd been told didn't match what she saw, has haunted her ever since. It's as if the authorities tried to downplay the severity of what happened, leaving her to grapple with the horrifying truth on her own. And then there's the mystery of Jimoy's missing phone. Nain revealed that her daughter owned 2 iPhones, yet only one was recovered after her death. The other phone, bafflingly, went online shortly after she died. What does that mean? Was someone using it, or was it simply an automated function triggered by an app or notification? Either way, it's yet another unanswered question in a case riddled with them. The emotional impact of this tragedy extends beyond Jimoy's immediate family. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers who followed the story online are struggling to make sense of it all. One commenter wrote, "It's heartbreaking to think about how much potential she had. She was only 19. Her life shouldn't have ended like this." Another added, "If this was truly an accident, why does it feel like we're not getting the whole story?" These sentiments reflect a broader frustration, one that stems from the lack of clarity surrounding Jimoy's death. For now, the family waits. They wait for answers, for accountability, for justice. But each day that passes without resolution feels like an eternity. As Rashan put it, we want a deeper investigation. This couldn't be an incident. It just couldn't be. Her words capture the essence of their fight, a desperate plea for transparency in a system that often leaves victims' families feeling powerless. So, let me ask you this. What do you think about the family's reaction? Do you believe their concerns are valid, or do you think they're jumping to conclusions? And what about the public's response? Does it feel justified, or is it too quick to point fingers? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be responding later, and I'd love to hear where you stand on this. As we reach the end of this story, one thing is painfully clear. There are still far more questions than answers. Investigators are working tirelessly to piece together what really happened that night in Mapan Clarendon. Was it an accident, as Constable Tavoy Hussey claims? Or was it something darker, something intentional? The conflicting accounts, the forensic evidence, and the lingering mysteries surrounding Jimoy's missing phone all point to a case that's far from resolved. Every detail uncovered seems to raise even more questions. Why was Jimoy shot twice, in the mouth and the breast? How could a trained police officer allow his firearm to discharge not once, but twice? And why does it feel like the truth is being skewered behind shifting narratives? For now, the family waits. They wait for clarity, for accountability, and most importantly, for justice. Jimoy Suckoo, Jimoy's mother, has made it clear that she won't rest until she knows the full truth about what happened to her daughter. "I need justice," she said. "My daughter was murdered, cold, bloody, murdered." Her words resonate deeply, reminding us that behind every headline is a human life. A person who mattered, who was loved, and whose loss leaves an irreplaceable void. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Jimoy Suckoo's family during this incredibly difficult time. Jimoy wasn't just a name or a statistic. She was a vibrant, independent young woman with dreams, ambitions, and people who adored her. She lit up rooms with her smile, worked hard to build her future, and carried herself with a confidence that inspired those around her. Though her life was tragically cut short, her memory lives on through the love of her family and friends. May her soul rest in peace. Before we wrap this up, I want to hear from you. What do you think happened that night? Do you believe Tavoy's version of events, or do you think there's more to this story than meets the eye? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be responding later, and I'd love to hear your theories. This case isn't just about finding answers. It's about honoring Jimoy's legacy by keeping her story alive. If you'd like to see more true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video with others who might appreciate it. Sharing stories like Jimoy's helps keep the conversation going. And sometimes conversations lead to action. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, justice begins with awareness. We'll see you in the next one.